I shoved the last bag into my trunk and sat behind the wheel for maybe a minute, just gripping the steering wheel like it owed me something. I could still hear the screen door creaking shut in my head, her face, that blank, done-with-me expression. Like I was just a mistake she'd finally cleaned up. That house had been my last option, and I'd fought like hell to earn every square foot of it. Back in early 2021, I was already drowning. My logistics consulting business, gone in 6 weeks. Clients disappeared, contracts canceled. I burned through 20 grand in savings trying to stay afloat, thinking it would turn around. It didn't. I was sleeping in the back of my Honda Civic when Lacey found me parked behind the Safeway, charging my laptop off a dying battery pack. She freaked out, said, "This is insane. Just come stay at the house for a little while, all right? We'll figure it out." Her parents had a split level over in Mission Hills, just north of San Diego. Big backyard, nice view, that fake family stability I used to think was impressive. Lacey talked them into letting me crash in the finished basement. It was supposed to be a few weeks, maybe 2 months max. Her dad, Bob, said, "Just until you get back on your feet, son." He was an old school guy, Vietnam vet, heart failure slowing him down. I said thank you 100 times, meant it every time. That was the deal, short term, work hard, no dead weight. And I did. I got up every morning before anyone else, applied to 20 jobs a day, took side gigs fixing busted HVACs and wiring light fixtures. The kind of crap no one in their house wanted to touch. When the fence rotted, I replaced it. When the dryer died, I pulled it apart and fixed the motor. Their daughters never lifted a damn finger. Carla lived 30 minutes away and came by to brag about her real estate numbers. Shannon, the youngest, floated in every few weeks wearing new clothes, always sipping on a matcha latte like she was on some kind of magazine shoot. Neither of them ever asked how I was doing. I was background noise. The guy in the basement, a free handyman with a pulse. When Bob's mobility got worse, I stepped in, took him to his cardiology appointments, picked up his meds, drove him to the VA 3 towns over twice a month. I even sat with him through his stress tests. He liked me in his quiet, worn-down way, called me kid, even though I was pushing 40. But as the months dragged on, I started noticing the shift. Lacey stopped asking about my interviews, stopped making plans with me. I was still cooking dinner for everyone every night, but she barely said thank you anymore. She'd come home, kick off her heels, and go straight to scrolling through her phone while I scraped plates and washed pans. One night, I brought up a website I'd launched for a side hustle, consulting for small retailers trying to streamline their operations. I was proud of it. Built the whole thing in a week, pitched 3 clients already. Carla smirked from across the table and said, "That's cute. A little passion project, huh?" I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Lacey didn't defend me. She just gave this tight little smile and started talking about her sister's new car. After that, I stopped bringing anything up. Even when I landed freelance gigs, it didn't matter. 500 here, 800 there, money that went right to groceries or bills. But they saw me as broke, and once that narrative set in, it didn't matter what I did. I was the guy who needed help. Lacey started talking to me like a landlord, not a partner. She'd say things like, "Just make sure you Venmo my dad by the 3rd, or "You still using the back bathroom, right? Shannon might need it when she visits." It was like I didn't even live there sometimes. Her sisters, they kept dropping hints like I was a squatter. Carla once joked, "We should put you on payroll at this point." When I fixed the upstairs AC unit, I said, "Yeah, maybe I'll finally get health insurance." She laughed like it was hilarious, then asked me to carry a new dresser upstairs. I lost track of how many nights I sat down in that basement, laptop open, resume out, trying to convince some HR manager that I wasn't washed up, that I had real skills, that I'd built 2 successful logistics models for mid-sized companies before the crash. Didn't matter. To them, I was a man taking up space, a guy who kept trying projects that never went anywhere. They didn't see the effort. They only saw the outcome. And since it wasn't shiny or brag-worthy, it didn't count. Worse than being seen as a failure, being seen as nothing at all. So I kept my head down, fixed what broke, showed up for their dad, and made myself useful. I thought eventually they'd see it. Eventually they'd know I wasn't just some sad case Lacey dragged home. But looking back now, it was never temporary. They just didn't say it out loud. I almost didn't reply to the email. I thought it was another scam job at first, some recruiter fishing for a resume to fill a slot. But the company was real, big-name national distributor with operations all over the West Coast. They needed a custom logistics platform and were looking for someone who could build it from scratch. No middlemen. Just me and a contract if I could deliver. I spent the next 3 days barely sleeping, pulling together mock-ups, strategy docs, use case samples. 8 cold leftovers in the basement, while the rest of the house was upstairs laughing at some HGTV show like nothing below ground existed. I didn't care. This was finally my lane again. Real work, real money, real stakes. When I got the call back, the guy on the phone said, "Can you fly up to Seattle and walk us through it in person?" They covered airfare, hotel, meals. I hadn't been on a business trip in years. I packed the night before and left a note on the kitchen counter for Lacey. "Flying out tomorrow. Big opportunity. I'll keep you posted." Didn't get a reply, just a thumbs-up reaction on the text I sent after. The flight was smooth, the hotel was decent. And when I walked into that boardroom and hooked up my laptop, something in me just switched on, like muscle memory. I talked them through the system I'd designed, how it could automate their inventory tracking, consolidate their delivery schedules, cut fulfillment time by 15% in the first quarter. They asked hard questions. I gave real answers. One of the execs leaned over halfway through and whispered something to the other guy, both of them nodding. After the pitch, they took me to dinner at some overpriced steakhouse downtown. They toasted with bourbon, told me they were strongly considering a longer-term offer depending on how the pilot project went. I didn't want to jinx it, but I felt it, solid ground under my feet again. After dinner, I walked back to the hotel through light Seattle rain. My blazer smelled like wood smoke and scotch. I stopped at a souvenir shop by Pike Place and picked up a Seahawks hoodie for Bob. Got Lacey a clean, modern watch with a minimalist face. Nothing fancy, but thoughtful. She likes simple stuff. Back in my room, I sent a group text. "Pitch went great. They're talking full-time role. This could be it." Nothing. Next morning, one heart emoji from Shannon, nothing from Lacey. I convinced myself they were just busy. Maybe the Wi-Fi was down at the house again. Maybe Lacey was just waiting for me to get home to celebrate properly. I tried not to let it eat at me. That entire flight home, I kept thinking about how I'd tell them. Maybe I'd take them out to dinner, lay out the contract, tell them I'd finally done it, finally turned the corner after 3 brutal years of grinding. I walked out of the airport and texted Lacey. "Landing now. Be home in an hour. Can't wait to tell you everything." Still nothing. And then I pulled into the driveway. 12 garbage bags lined up like body bags. Everything I owned shoved inside them. Not a single box, no note, no heads up. Just my life dumped out like yard waste. I straightened up and faced them. "What the hell is this?" My voice came out louder than I meant, but I didn't back down. Lacey didn't even blink. "You've had enough time. You're not going anywhere in life." Her sisters didn't move. Carla tilted her head a little, smirking like she'd been rehearsing for this moment. I stepped closer to the porch steps. "I just closed a 6-figure contract," I said. "A real one, signed and sealed. That's what I've been doing this week," Carla muttered. "Talk is cheap," Shannon added. "You should have been out last year." It was like being in court with no judge, just a sentencing. They'd already decided who I was, and nothing I said mattered. "Where's your dad?" I asked. My voice cracked. Bob at least could have looked me in the eye. "He's inside," Lacey said flatly. "This isn't about him." "The hell it isn't," I shot back. "I've been taking him to his appointments for 3 years, doing everything nobody else wanted to do. And you couldn't even give me a heads up?" Lacey shifted her weight on the top step. "We're selling the house," she said. "We don't need you complicating anything." There it was. The real reason. I took another step up the porch stairs until I was just below them. "Complicating," I repeated. "That's what I am to you? Not family, not a partner, just a complication." She crossed her arms tighter. "You've been living off us for years. Don't rewrite the story now." "Living off you?" I laughed once, bitter. "I paid rent every month, fixed everything in this damn place, cooked, shoveled, drove your dad wherever he needed, all while trying to get back on my feet. But sure, let's call that living off you." Carla rolled her eyes. "We're done feeling guilty about this," Shannon chimed in. "You were always temporary. We just didn't say it. I stared up at the three of them, my hands balled into fists. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my neck. "Look at me," I said quietly. "Look at me and tell me you honestly think I'm dead weight." Lacey hesitated for half a second, then looked away. "I don't want to argue," she said. "Just take your stuff and go." "No." My voice was low, steady now. "You're going to stand there and listen for 30 seconds. You told me to figure out my life. Fine, I just did. That contract I landed, it's worth more than your annual salary, and they're talking full time." Carla laughed like I'd told a bad joke. "Sure they are," I pointed at her. "You have no idea what I've been building while you've been looking down on me." Shannon said, "This isn't about your dreams. This is about our house." "Exactly," Lacey added. "We're moving on. You should too." I looked past them at the front door, thinking maybe Bob would appear. Maybe he'd at least try to mediate, but the living room curtains didn't move. He wasn't coming out. I turned back to them. "You waited until I left to pack my stuff," I said. "You didn't even give me a phone call. That's who you are." "Don't make this ugly," Lacey said, voice clipped. "It's already ugly," I shot back. "You just dressed it up in polite words." For a moment, no one spoke. Wind rattled the empty flagpole by the porch. My duffel bag sat open on the lawn, the watch box peeking out like a joke. I took a breath. "You know what? Keep the gifts, sell the house, do whatever, but you don't get to tell me I'm nothing." Carla snorted. "Nobody said you're nothing." "You didn't have to," I said. "You showed me." I grabbed 2 of the garbage bags and dragged them toward my car. The plastic scraped against the driveway, making an ugly sound. My hands burned from the weight, but I didn't stop. Behind me, Shannon called, "We're not the bad guys here." I turned just enough to glare at her. "Could have fooled me." Then I yanked open the trunk and shoved the bags inside, one after the other. Sweat dripped down my back, even though the air had cooled. My heart was still hammering, but something else was rising under it, something solid, almost calm. I slammed the trunk shut. "You wanted me gone? Fine, you got it." Lacey finally looked at me then. Just for a second. Her face didn't move, but her eyes flickered, like she wasn't as sure as she pretended. I didn't give her a chance to say anything else. I walked back up the driveway, grabbed the last 2 bags, and hauled them to the car. Then I got in, started the engine, and pulled away without looking back. I didn't know where I was driving. I just knew I couldn't sit in that driveway another second. I made it 2 blocks before I had to pull over, hands shaking, chest tight. I sat there, engine running, surrounded by everything I owned, shoved into garbage bags. Then I grabbed my phone and called Marcus. We hadn't talked much in a while, Army buddy from Fort Bragg. He picked up on the second ring. I didn't even get the first word out before he said, "You good?" "No," I said. "Lacey's family threw me out. I've got nothing, no place to crash." "You got a couch here, bring your bags." That was it. No questions, no pity. I drove straight to Lemon Grove, parked outside his apartment complex, and he was already waiting by the door. Big bear hug, no judgment. Just that solid kind of loyalty that doesn't need explaining. His girlfriend, Tasha, had every right to be annoyed, but she didn't flinch. Set me up with a blanket, an air mattress in the corner of the living room, and a cabinet shelf for my stuff. 3 weeks. That's how long I stayed. Long enough to find a studio in El Cajon with peeling linoleum, a leaky faucet, and 1 tiny window. Rent was cheap enough if I stretched what little I had left. My savings barely covered the deposit in first month. I didn't even own a mattress. First night, I slept on the floor with my duffel bag as a pillow. I bought a used folding table off Craigslist, found a thrift store down the block where I picked up mismatched dishes, a $10 saucepan, and a scratched-up coffee maker that sounded like it was dying every morning, but still worked. I was eating ramen and canned tuna, teaching myself how to cook anything better off YouTube. Made a mean chili by week 2. Burned rice 3 times before I figured out I needed a lid. But I woke up with sunlight hitting my face, and for the first time in a long time, the air didn't feel heavy. That company in Seattle, they kept their word. Full-time offer came in a week later. Remote role, decent salary, and a small signing bonus. Nothing flashy, but enough to catch my breath. I set up my laptop on that folding table and got to work. I built them a clean, responsive logistics system that ran smoother than anything they'd used before. My new manager called after 2 weeks and said, "Whatever they're paying you, it's not enough." I laughed. "Let's not jinx it. I didn't tell him I was working from a chair I pulled out of a dumpster 2 blocks over, or that I was still sleeping on a borrowed air mattress. Didn't matter. Every night, I'd sit by that window with a cold beer and a cheap plate of pasta, staring out at the alley behind my building, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free, no lectures, no guilt, no one watching me, waiting to be disappointed, just me and whatever the hell I wanted to build next. And that was enough to keep going. 1 week after I moved into that studio, Lacey texted me out of nowhere. "We hope there's no hard feelings." That was it. No apology, no explanation, just this fake polite garbage like she was following up after a dentist appointment. I stared at it for maybe 30 seconds, then blocked her number. Couple hours later, I got 2 emails. One from Shannon, one from Carla. Both had the same tone, like they'd copied each other's homework. Shannon wrote, "We understand this must be difficult. If you need help finding a roommate situation, let us know." Carla's was worse. "You're not alone. We just want what's best for everyone." They'd tossed me out like trash and were now acting like social workers. I didn't reply. I didn't even finish reading the messages. Just hit delete and emptied the trash folder. Marcus came by that night with a case of beer and a pizza. We sat on milk crates in my kitchen, since I didn't have chairs yet. I told him what they sent. He took a long sip, wiped his mouth, and said, "That wasn't a breakup, man. That was an ambush." He was right, and it hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I couldn't sleep for days. I'd check the locks twice before bed, then again an hour later. Every noise made me jump. Someone slammed a car door out front, and I nearly knocked over my laptop. I was always waiting for something to collapse. Like maybe this new job would ghost me too. Like someone would show up and tell me this new place wasn't really mine. It felt stupid. I was a grown man, but I couldn't shake it. The worst part wasn't losing Lacey. It was realizing none of them ever saw me as part of their family, not once. I'd been convenient, useful, a guy who changed light bulbs and pushed their dad's wheelchair and paid rent without asking for anything back. A temporary fix they could walk past until it got too uncomfortable. That realization hit harder than any breakup I'd been through. So I started seeing a therapist through work. It came with the new job, first time I'd ever had benefits that covered anything. I didn't think I'd even go through with it, but I booked the session anyway. She didn't blink when I told her everything, just sat calmly, listening like I wasn't crazy. She called it abandonment trauma. Said I'd been emotionally displaced, like a long-term guest who thought he had a room, only to find out he never really had a key. That phrase stuck in my head for days. She said, "They didn't reject who you are. They rejected who they imagined you to be." I didn't know what to do with that, but it sat with me. Still does. Some nights I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, the streetlight spilling through the window blinds, and just feel this tight pressure in my chest. Not sadness, not anger, just disbelief. Like I couldn't believe I ever thought I was safe there. One morning, I woke up, made coffee in that busted thrift store machine, sat down at my folding table, and saw the email from corporate. Promotion, lead developer, distribution rollout. Phase 2. There was a pay bump, a real one, plus project leadership, full authority on hiring vendors and scheduling the next 6-month deployment. I leaned back in my chair, sipping that bitter burnt coffee, and just grinned. No one was clapping, no one cheering in the kitchen. But I didn't need that anymore. I'd done it. Couple weeks later, I traded the Civic for a used F-150. Nothing fancy, just solid. Low miles, clean title, V6, paid cash. First time I'd felt proud behind the wheel in years. I moved out of that studio and into a 2-bedroom over in La Mesa. Had a real kitchen with working burners, a fridge that didn't hum like a dying generator, and an actual couch I didn't have to borrow. I bought myself a mattress, brand new. No hand-me-downs, no air beds, queen size, firm. Slept like a rock the first night and woke up not looking over my shoulder for the first time in months. About 3 months in, Marcus came by with beers and said, "You hear what happened to Lacey's family?" I raised an eyebrow. "Nope, and don't care." He grinned. Apparently Carla talked Bob into investing in some startup crypto thing. Tanked. They lost almost everything they had in savings. I paused for a second. Let that sink in. Then I cracked open the beer and said, "Huh." I didn't laugh. I didn't gloat. Just felt this cold little click inside, like balance finally restored itself. A few days after that, I got another text from Lacey. Hey, I know things ended rough, but I've been thinking about you. I miss how things used to be. No mention of what they did, no ownership. Just that soft, slippery way people talk when they want something without asking. I left it on red, no lectures at dinner, no fake sympathy, no one treating me like I was broken glass they had to walk around. Just me and my place, my job, my peace. Every time I checked my bank account and saw 4 digits sitting there without fear, I thought about those trash bags on the driveway. Every time I sat on my couch eating dinner, I thought about Carla calling my side hustle a cute hobby. Every time I woke up and stretched out on my mattress, I thought about Lacey standing on that porch saying, "You're not going anywhere in life." And every time I remembered it, I smiled, because I was already gone, and I wasn't ever going back. The first thing I bought after getting settled was a set of basic power tools. Nothing fancy, just enough to start building with my hands again. I picked up some reclaimed wood from a yard in Chula Vista, dragged it up to my second-floor apartment one plank at a time, and built a simple coffee table. Took me 2 weekends. It wasn't perfect, uneven in places, a little wobbly at first, but it was mine. There was something about shaping something real, cutting, sanding, screwing it together, that got my head quiet. I started making bookshelves, a bench for my little balcony, even tried building a nightstand out of pallet wood. Failed twice before getting it right. On Saturdays, I'd throw my boots in the truck and drive east into the hills. Hiked out near Mount Laguna or down by Lake Morena. Just me, a backpack, and silence. No one asking when I'd get my act together. No one watching me like a stray dog someone forgot to chase off. I took weekend trips solo, Palm Springs, Big Bear, sometimes just a motel on the edge of town, with a pool and quiet. I wasn't running from anything anymore. I was choosing where I went. My brother and I started talking again. We'd lost touch over the years, mostly because I was too embarrassed to admit how bad things had gotten. He came by the new place one night, looked around and said, "You're doing better than ever, man. I mean that." And I believed him. I dated a little. Nothing serious, no pressure. I didn't owe anyone a version of me I wasn't ready to give. No one was walking on eggshells, least of all me. At work, I started mentoring a couple younger guys. One of them, Josh, was going through a rough divorce. Same kind of crap, getting blamed for things he couldn't fix. One night after a late shift, we were grabbing tacos and he asked me, "How'd you bounce back?" I told him straight, "Don't wait around for people to value you. Show them you can thrive without them." He nodded, said, "That's the hardest part." "Yeah," I said, "but it's the part that sticks." My apartment wasn't big. 1 bedroom, half bath, little balcony that rattled when the wind picked up. But every piece of it came from me. The table, the job, the damn peace I fought for. No judgment, no lectures. I built that life by hand, and no one was ever taking it from me again. I was standing in the garage, staining a new bench I'd built, when my phone rang. Number wasn't saved, but I recognized the area code. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, a text popped up. "Hey, it's Carla. We need to talk. It's about the house." That caught my eye. I wiped my hands off, called her back. She answered like nothing had happened. "Hey, hope you're doing well. So, bit of a situation. Your name's still on some of the improvement permits we filed while you were there, and some of the work logs too. The buyers flagged it." I didn't say anything, just let her talk. She kept going. "We talked to our lawyer. They said you might have some legal stake in how the upgrades affected the property value. It's complicated." Right, complicated. That was their favorite word when they didn't want to admit they screwed up. "So what are you asking me?" I said. "We'd like to offer you a small settlement," she said, "to clear things up. You know, just to make it all go smoothly." Translation: "Please sign this so we can sell the house and not deal with you again." "How small we talkin'?" I asked. She named a number. It wasn't insulting, but it wasn't fair either. I said, "I'll think about it." Then I hung up and called a lawyer of my own. Guy came recommended from a friend at work. Sharp, quiet, thorough. I laid it all out. What I'd done for the house, what I'd signed, what I hadn't. He dug into the documents, checked county filings, and looked over everything Lacey's family had touched. 3 days later, he called me back. "They're bluffing," he said. "You've got a legitimate claim. They're just hoping you won't push." I didn't want to take them to court. I didn't need drama. I just wanted what was right. So I sent Carla a counteroffer, exactly double what they offered me. Attached a polite little message. Let me know if this works, otherwise we can let the lawyers handle it. She replied in 10 minutes. Fine, we'll have the paperwork drawn up. I signed the agreement, money wired to my account 2 days later. And I didn't waste it. That cash became the down payment on a small house over in Lakeside. 1-story, 2-car garage, decent yard, no HOA. Needed some updating, but I didn't mind that. First thing I did was set up a full workshop in the garage. Pegboard, tool rack, solid workbench with locking drawers. Smelled like fresh-cut pine and sawdust the minute I walked in. No ghosts, no guilt. No one hovering behind me with crossed arms waiting to be disappointed. That house was quiet. Mine. The day I moved in, I stood in the empty living room and just listened to the silence. No TV upstairs, no footsteps pacing above me, just stillness. Then I unpacked one box at a time, built new furniture piece by piece, and filled it with things I actually wanted. No hand-me-downs, no pressure, no favors I'd regret later. That payout didn't make me rich, but it gave me exactly what I needed. Room and a door I had the only key to. A couple months after I settled into the new place, a mutual friend from back in San Diego called me up out of nowhere. We hadn't talked in years, but I picked up anyway. Small talk at first. Work, weather, what we were both up to. Then she said, "You know Lacey still tells people you bailed when things got hard, right?" I didn't say anything for a second, just looked out the window at my quiet little street. "Bailed?" I finally said. She left my stuff on the curb while I was out working. "I know," she said quickly. "I just thought you should know what's being said." I thanked her and hung up. Didn't need to hear more. That version of the story? Let her keep it. People like that don't remember the details they want to forget. But I do. I remember dragging 12 garbage bags off that driveway with my bare hands. I remember sleeping on a hardwood floor with a folded hoodie for a pillow. I remember teaching myself to make a meal again with a $5 skillet. And I remember standing in front of a room full of executives and winning back the part of me I thought I'd lost. That wasn't running. That was survival. I made peace with it all. Not for Lacey, not for her family, but for myself. Yeah, I still get anxious when I pack a suitcase. I'll double-check the door lock, stare at the wall before a trip, and wonder if something's waiting to fall apart. Old scars don't vanish just because the bleeding stops. But I remind myself, this place is mine. The key in my hand opens a door no one can lock behind me. I've got a job that sees what I bring to the table, friends who show up without being asked, quiet mornings that aren't filled with tension. And more than anything, I've got proof. Proof that they were wrong. They thought they were cutting me loose. What they really did was unchain me. They didn't break me, they freed me. And I built something better without them, brick by damn brick. That's the kind of revenge I like best. The kind that doesn't need an audience. The kind that lasts. And if there's one thing I know now, it's this. I'll never again let anyone treat me like a guest in my own life. Not for a day, not for a minute, not ever.